Hey, it's good to have you here. Episode 17, it's all about the lore. A few weekends ago, I was out with a group of friends who I hadn't seen in a while. We started the night just grabbing dinner, one of those plans that was supposed to end early, but somehow turned into a long walk finding a cool new bar. Then we stayed for a few more drinks. And way too many stories. Then, at some point, someone said, "Wait, remember that one time?" And suddenly the table came alive with laughter. We started retelling old stories, trips gone wrong, weird dates, the time someone tried karaoke, the mic drop moments, and we laughed so much and it got louder. It was so much fun. By the end of it, someone leaned back and said, "Oh my, that's the lore." Everyone laughed and we all knew. That was cool lingo and we were down with the kids. We'll leave it at that. I know. Questionable to be cool with the kids? Of course this stuck with me. Because that's really what the word means, right? The lore is the shared backstory, the memories that give things meaning. It's the context behind the inside jokes, the glue that makes a group of people feel like a group. And that's what made me think. We all have lore like that, not just in friendships, but in how we see ourselves. The next morning, when I was making coffee and scrolling through photos from the night, I started thinking about my own personal lore. The stories I tell about who I am, the funny ones, the embarrassing ones, the lessons I claim I've learned. Some of them are great reminders of how far I've come. And some of them maybe need an update. Because if you look closely, our lore, the stuff we carry from experience to experience, is what quietly shapes how we move through everyday life. It's in how we approach work, how we date, how we create, how we handle conflict. It's the reason why one person takes the lead in planning a night out, while another hangs back. Why someone always picks up the bill first, or avoids the camera, or downplays their success. It's all little traces of past stories, lessons, insecurities, tiny beliefs that linger. So I started thinking, when is our lore worth keeping? And when does it start to hold us back? Because there's good lore, the kind that reminds you who you are, like the friend who always brings the fun energy because she remembers how awkward it felt to be left out. Or the person who's good at reading the room because they've learned the value of listening first. That kind of lore makes life richer. It helps you connect. It gives you emotional depth and a sense of continuity. But there's also the kind that quietly limits you. The stories that used to serve a purpose but don't anymore. Maybe you had a rough time socially in high school, and now, even when you're surrounded by good people, part of you still expects to be left out. Or maybe you once got burned at work, and now you assume every bit of feedback is a threat. Or maybe you tell yourself, "I'm just bad at relationships," or "I'm not the confident one." And those stories become self-fulfilling, not because they're true now, but because they used to be. That's the thing about lore. It's powerful, but it doesn't always know when to update itself. That night out with my friends made me realize something simple but freeing. The stories we tell about ourselves, our friendships, our work, our patterns can change. They're meant to evolve. You can keep the parts that make you laugh, the parts that remind you you've survived things, the parts that connect you to others. But you can also decide, yeah, that version of me, I'm done carrying that. So here's a small question for you this week. What's a story you keep repeating about yourself, maybe even as a joke, that doesn't really fit anymore? Like, "I'm terrible at texting back. I always end up the responsible one. I'm bad with money. I can't relax. I don't like kimchi." Maybe that story was true once. Maybe it even kept you safe or made you relatable. But what if it's outdated? What if it's time for a new version of that story? That's how I've started thinking about lore in real life, not as something fixed, but as something we can rewrite. Because every new experience, every late-night conversation, every work project, every heartbreak, every inside joke adds a new layer to who we are. And sometimes the best thing we can do is look at those layers and ask, what do I want to keep? What's ready to change? The next time you're out with friends, pay attention to how the stories come up. What do you choose to tell? What parts do you skip over? What's the version of you that shows up when you're having fun? The one who's relaxed, curious, unfiltered? That version probably knows something about your real values, the ones that get buried under work pressure and daily structure. The lore that matters isn't always deep or dramatic. Sometimes it's just the ordinary, joyful moments that remind you what kind of person you actually are. This is Pivot Era, a podcast for people figuring it out in real time, for the ones learning to grow without rushing, to change without losing their spark. So maybe tonight or this weekend, when you're out with people who know you best, pay attention to your own lore, the stories you tell, the energy you bring, the moments that still make you laugh. Keep the ones that feel like home. Let go of the ones that feel like history. You're not a fixed story. You're a remix, constantly updating. And for the record, some of us remember the lore of the original vinyl records, 12-inch versions, and that's definitely another backstory. Of course, for another time. This is an AI voice-powered podcast shared by humans who simply want to connect across generations and normalize the art of starting again. New episodes drop every Wednesday and Sunday. Share it with someone who's navigating their own pivot or who needs to hear that beginnings aren't failures. They're growth.